Thank you, Dave. That was beautiful. Thank you. Great way to start this Sunday. My name is Kathleen. I am the platform assistant today, and I welcome you to our Sunday Zoom service, which will also be on our YouTube recording. So welcome all that are seeing it on YouTube. And I want to let you know that our speaker today is Cheryl Welsh-Charrier. She is someone who has spoken to us many times before and is a old-time community member. And she has a lot of knowledge about unity and knows the principles really well. And she's going to give a talk today on the power of surrender. I'm really looking forward to it. And I do want to also mention, as you have already heard, Dave Kane is our musician today. And he's been with us many times before. He's been with us for years. And he is, I want to mention that in his second special music, he's going to have his daughter, Celeste, one of his daughters, Celeste, join him. So that's his real special treat. So for our centering prayer, I picked a poem by Denise Levertov. Our, talk for today, as I said, is on surrender. And this was I think this deals a lot with surrender for me. It's called The Avowal. As swimmers dare to lie face to the sky, and waters bear them, as hawks rest upon the air, and air sustains them, so would I learn to attain free fall and float into Creator Spirit's deep embrace, knowing no effort earns that all-surrounding grace. Amen.
My goodness, thank you, Dave. That was just beautiful. And thank you, Kathleen. So the title of my talk is The Power of Surrender, or Have I Let Go of All That Gets in the Way of My Yes? This question was in the Easter reading from our Lenten booklet and is followed by, our lives are made new to the extent we have cast off limits created in our minds and have claimed the transformational power of spirit within us. We're Unity Truth students. We know all this until challenges come up that cause us to forget. I heard someone say once that they were a forgetter. I'm sometimes a forgetter and sometimes an ignorer. The title, The Power of Surrender, came before I started reading the Lenten booklet, which turned out to be entirely about surrender with its release and renew theme. In one of my talks, I quoted a character from a movie called a character called the Infinite One from a Doctor Strange movie. It's an Avengers movie. I kept wanting to watch that movie again, and when I finally did, I heard her say to Doctor Strange when he was in training, in essence, you need to let go of that colossal ego and surrender to the process. So, what is it that each of us needs to release and surrender so that we can renew ourselves in order to reach our highest and best? What is it that we need to surrender to stay centered in our hearts and live from a place of Christ consciousness all the time, not just in church or in meditation or in isolated moments during the day when we happen to think of it, but all the time? The only person I have ever met who came close to having achieved this, perhaps did achieve it, was Reverend Lafayette Seymour. When he walked into a room, the energy changed, and a feeling of all is right with the world filled the space. In part, it might be a colossal ego that we need to surrender. More than likely, though, it's preconceived notions about who we are and what we're capable of, which can sometimes lead us to feelings of lack and limitation. It's the not enough syndrome. Not enough time, not smart enough, not talented enough, not rich enough, just plain not good enough. I will speak for myself right now. This leads me to always trying to figure things out, or second guess things, or keep a tight and controlling grip on things. All of this instead of letting go and letting God. All of this instead of saying yes to getting out of my head and living from my heart. To some extent, Roy's recent talk was about this very thing. Do we want to stick with door one, or do we want to open door two and see what's there? Yes, we have peer pressure, sometimes from dead people, sometimes from society, sometimes from our family, pressure to conform, to do likewise, not to deviate from the norm. And so perhaps we get stuck in a life that's not really ours. We didn't create it. Someone else created it for us. The good news is, as A Course in Miracles tells us, we get to choose again. Shamelessly stealing this directly from Roy, we get to tune into WGOD, God, helping us sparkle 24 hours a day. Coincidentally or not, the daily word for May 7th was sparkle. The radiant light of God shines brightly through me. Awake and aware of spirit within, I embody it for everyone to see. There's an article called Sowing the Seeds of Surrender in the May-June Daily Word. The author, Peggy Piper, was trying to work something out and it just wouldn't come together. She was ranting to God about it and finally just said, I give up. This was not done with any conscious thought of surrendering, of letting go and letting God, but that was the outcome. It's like she stepped into the divine flow and things fell into place. She says, the mind-body-soul connection does not respond to only conscious words. My expressions of stress and upset opened me up, allowing me to access the power of release, letting go of the illusion of control. Let's explore surrender for a moment, which often suggests weakness. Armies surrender when they lose a battle. Or it might mean just plain giving up a dream or a goal, something that was important but that we were struggling with, which we would classify as a failure. The dictionary definition is to relinquish possession or control of to another, because of demand or compulsion, or to give up in favor of another. Another way to think about surrender is as non-resistance. We all know the saying, what we resist persists. When we focus our attention on the negative, whatever that might be, we usually get discontent, discord, disharmony, all of the disses. When I gave up pursuing acting as a profession, I felt like a failure. At some point, I realized that while I loved acting, I didn't love the profession. I disliked auditioning. I didn't want to sublet my apartment to do summer stock or regional theater. As a profession, it simply did not suit me, but my mind was focused on failure and what it would look like to my family and friends when I had worked so hard toward this goal. It took a while for me to surrender and arrive at the realization that I was exactly where I needed to be, doing exactly what I needed to do. In Rising Strong, Brené Brown talks about vulnerability, which is part of what's necessary to surrender. She says, vulnerability is not weakness, it's our greatest measure of courage. And it does take courage to let go of our preconceived notions of what we are and what we're meant to do, so that we can arrive at a place of peace with ourselves and the world we live in. I was led to go back and have a look at Michael Singer's two books, The Untethered Soul and The Surrender Experiment. In The Untethered Soul, he talks about the fact that everything that happens both inside and outside ourselves requires energy. It's easy to see that what happens outside, walking, talking, exercising, working, requires physical energy and harder to see it inside. Though we can be physically tired and our outer energy might be low, our spiritual energy is always available to us. It's a vast resource. And when we close our hearts, when we shut down, we block this flow. He says energy doesn't get old, it doesn't get tired, and it doesn't need food. What it needs is openness and receptivity. Later, he says, what you'll find is that the only thing you really want from life is to feel enthusiasm, joy, and love. This reminded me of the affirmation, I am alive, alert, awake, joyous, and enthusiastic. He goes on to say, if you can feel that all the time, then who cares what happens outside? Closing our hearts and shutting down our intuitive channels is often a habit based on past experiences. It can almost be a knee-jerk reaction when it happens. But habits can be broken because nothing is worth closing our hearts over, and it's open-heartedness that gets us to surrender. When Reverend Karen spoke a few weeks ago, she said something that stuck with me and that absolutely resonates. Can we stop criticizing and elevating and just allow? Put another way, can we stop comparing and despairing? In the Surrender Experiment, Singer says, what would happen if we respected the flow of life and used our free will to participate in what's unfolding instead of fighting it? This would put us in a place where our fears and desires no longer controlled us. He started with the weather, as in, what a dreary rainy day, versus, look how beautiful the rain is. But what does this mean when it comes to injustices? Perhaps it means that instead of joining the fight, whatever it is, we keep the high watch and affirm that the highest and best outcome is at hand for all involved. When anger is our response, this becomes so much more difficult. But we can step into the truth of our principles. You've heard them before from me, and here they are again. Number one, God is absolute good, everywhere present. Two, we have a spark of divinity within us, the Christ spirit within. Our very essence is of God, and therefore we are inherently good. Three, we create our experiences by the activity of our thinking. We are co-creators with God. Four, prayer is creative thinking that heightens our connection with God mind and therefore brings forth wisdom, healing, prosperity, and everything good. And five, knowing and understanding truth is not enough. We must also live the truth as we know it. I found a quote from Imelda Shanklin, a Release and Renew booklet, that resonates with this. It uses the word non-resistance. Non-resistance is stronger than resistance. Its practice requires more mind capacity than resistance. Its appeal is to the divine thing in you. It is the essence of God. The essence of non-resistance is unity. It often feels like these talks are about me working things out in my life. This one certainly is. Before beginning work on this, I've been thinking a lot about surrender, largely because it's surrender that allows us to be in the divine flow. I know what the word means, but I'm never sure I know what it feels like. It would be nice to be able to say, I surrender to my highest good and have an immediate spiritual awakening, a la the heavens opening and a choir of angels singing, and then we just live in bliss. I've come to realize, though, that just as most other things in life, surrender is a journey. We come to different crossroads in life and are prompted to surrender pieces of what no longer serves us, pieces of what is in our way in the divine flow. Looking up surrender in the Bible on the internet came up with a lot of examples. Excuse me. Perhaps the most familiar one is the story of the prodigal son in chapter 15 of the Gospel of Luke. He took his share of the inheritance, traveled to a faraway land, and squandered it. There was a famine. He hired himself out and was put to work feeding the pigs and wishing he had what they had to eat. And then it says, but when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired hands have bread enough to spare, but here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands. Of course, the father embraces him and says, let us eat and celebrate, for this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. Possibly most of us have been lost and found many times in our lives. Hopefully the lost times become fewer and farther apart as we continue our journey. I took a look at our 12 powers to see which one might resonate with surrender or non-resistance. The conclusion that I came up is that they all do. Elimination stands out a bit because it's about eliminating error thoughts from the mind. And of course, faith. The chapter on faith in the 12 powers quotes Charles Wesley. Faith, mighty faith, the promise sees and rests on that alone, laughs at impossibilities and says, it shall be done. So perhaps one way to surrender is simply to laugh at impossibilities, because it's putting on the brakes and thinking we're not up to the task that often trips us up and puts us right back in the not enoughs and distance. And then there's love. The chapter begins, Jesus Christ was a carpenter. His mission on earth was to construct a spiritual body temple, to unfold a spiritual soul, and to teach us the spiritual laws involved in order that we might follow him. I interpret follow him as do likewise. Do the same for ourselves and all humankind. In the Lenten booklet, the March 30th reading says, I release the habit of digging in my heels, which could point to things like stubbornness or arrogance, which most likely points to fear of change or letting go. The renew on March 31st was, I renew my practice of non-resistance. Surrender in battle would require outer energy, but this emotional mental surrender requires the inner energy of openness and receptivity. So let's prepare for meditation. As we center ourselves with several deep breaths, you might want to try placing one or both of your hands over your heart. As we breathe in and release. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Dwelling in this present moment, I know it is a wonderful moment. That's from Thich Nhat Hanh. I release the habit of judging others as I renew my commitment to see the divine in all beings. I release doubt, confusion, and indecision as I renew my willingness to step out in faith. I release my habit of worrying as I renew my faith in divine order. I release thoughts or fears of illness as I renew my openness to the healing power of spirit. I release the shadows of grief and sorrow as I renew myself in the serenity of silence. As we come back from the silence, we renew ourselves in the fellowship of our community. And so it is, and so it will always be. Namaste.
May you awaken to the mystery of being here and enter the quiet immensity of your own presence. May you have joy and peace in the temple of your senses. May you receive great encouragement when new frontiers beckon. May you respond to the call of your gift and find the courage to follow its path. May the flame of anger free you from falsity. May warmth of heart keep your presence aflame and anxiety never linger about you. May your outer dignity mirror an inner dignity of soul. May you take time to celebrate the quiet miracles that seek no attention. May you be consoled in the secret symmetry of your soul. May you experience each day as a sacred gift woven around the heart of wonder. Amen.
We are so blessed here at Unity Center DC for extraordinary speakers, talented musicians who share with us each week their God gift, their message, their inspiration. And for us as recipients, I'd like you to take this moment and be grateful. If you want to express your gratitude by giving a gift to Unity Center DC, it's possible. We'll put up on the screen the options, but you can give online, you can mail a cash or a check to the address you'll see on the screen, so that we can continue this ministry, which has blessed us all. Thank you.